Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Needs Some Introduction. I oftentimes forget, I should say, to introduce myself. So my name is Victor, and I am here to hopefully introduce you all to something to watch. Usually, we're talking about a show that we're watching week to week. At this current moment in May, as Emmy eligibility is coming to a close, there is many things that are on the air right now. And today's specific topic, Darren, is joining me again for today's
G'day,
episode.
Victor.
And for today's episode, we will be discussing briefly Mobland, which we've been watching week to week, but primarily we will be discussing Andor, the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th episodes of Andor. And then, of course, we will regroup one more time next week to discuss the final 3 episodes of the Andor season and see how it all landed. I was very impressed with these 3 episodes that we're about to discuss shortly. Before all of that, some things I've been watching that Darren's been watching, some recommendations for all of you, mostly movies. First of all, I did see Sinners, which has become an utter phenomenon here in the US. And I hear that even overseas, it's been getting some traction. I was very surprised, given the nearly unanimous praise from audiences and critics, that I was kind of lukewarm on this movie. But I won't go into spoilers here, of course. But what I would say is that I think that maybe there's 2 things that are winning over audiences, and they're bypassing some of the flaws in the story. First of all, because Ryan Coogler directing this is an incredibly well-made, technically beautifully produced and thrilling, oftentimes, and very interesting thematically story that folds in some. It's from watching the trailer, it's pretty obvious what the plot is, but people have been telling me that the villains, I'll just call them the main villains in the story, are that giving that away is a spoiler. I don't imagine how that's possible, but I'll leave it vague. But there is a supernatural element to this story set during Prohibition era South. And it is beautifully mounted, as I mentioned. And there's thematically some really fascinating ideas. Unfortunately for me, I think that the story raises the ideas and then kind of moves away from them. However, really amazingly, handsomely mounted. There is a musical sequence right in the middle of the film, which is basically the highlight of the whole thing, which is absolutely ecstatic and astonishing. And the rest of the film, unfortunately, isn't as good as that. And the other thing that I think really highly recommends this is Michael B. Jordan. I've always liked him, but not been a huge fan of his. I'm like, is he like a star? Is he really going to be like one of those stars? This movie, he's a star. This guy is going to be a star. He gets to play in these dual roles, show so much more nuance to his performance, and just he has real charisma shining through in both of these different characters. So he's fantastic, and the production of the film is fantastic. I'd have to get into spoilers to nitpick my concerns around things. So I was a little bit disappointed with it, but I understand where the enthusiasm is coming from. And in general, I have to say that just happy to see people excited to watch a movie in movie theaters again.
Yeah, it's a big movie here as well. My son actually brought it up on the weekend. He says, "Oh, can we go and see Sinners?" And he never brings up films, so obviously his mates are talking about it. From reading some reviews, they have spoiled who the villains are, and I kind of guessed it after watching the trailer a few times, which is. Yeah, so
not witches though.
That, I'm not going to spoil. No, I'm not going to spoil it. But if you do, that's completely fine because I feel like it's out there now. But from the trailer, you get this real a sense of that musical vibe. I think there was a movie called Black Snake Moan a while ago, which is by the director of Hustle and Flow, and that had a real kind of old. Like bluesy jazz influence, which I thought those sweaty clubs that they have. I thought that was kind of giving that kind of vibe. So that's what I'm really interested in.
It is very musical, and in surprising ways, it is almost a musical, believe it or not. There's so many musical elements to it, but it is, that's one of the strongest elements to it. But like I said, maybe once you've seen it, we can have a whole spoiler discussion, because it is definitely worth having a deeper conversation. That in a way, its ambition is what disappointed me in that it is extremely ambitious. It just doesn't quite develop those ideas sufficiently for me.
Well, you can see, I mean, Ryan Coogler's just come off the back of those two massive Black Panther films. So he would have learned a lot from them. And sometimes these directors that come from those Marvel films struggle to make another feature film that can live up to their expectations. I'm thinking of like the Russo brothers.
Yeah, right.
But it's really good news that this lives up to it, because I'm a fan of that guy as a director, and I'm a fan of Michael B. Jordan as well. I thought he was amazing in that Black Panther movie, and also in that Fruitvale Station film as well. Yes, he's it's good news.
Yeah, he's had there's an innate charisma, there's a magnetism there, obviously, that you need to be a star. So I didn't know if he had the chops to be, to have that a kind of career that would allow him to take on a lot of different types of roles. I mean, I think he was really good in Coogler, once again, the first Creed movie. I think he's excellent in that. And that's a fantastic movie also. But like I said, I've always been a fan, but kind of say like, okay, he needed to step it up in some way. And I think that this is him really coming to full power as a movie star. I think that's part of what, I think whenever you have a film where someone becomes a star in the course of the film, those films tend to catch fire at the box office. So it is definitely worth a watch. Yeah, so check it out, and then maybe we can have a conversation about it.
For sure.
Also, I saw Thunderbolts.
I saw Thunderbolts too.
I really liked it. From your brief messaging to me, I seemed you really enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, I did. So you messaged me and you said it's in the top 10 Marvel movies, which I was like, does that mean it's good? But then I realized there is so many Marvel movies that is actually high praise. I liked it. I thought it was really fun. I thought it was good to see different heroes, and they're not necessarily superheroes.
Right.
There is some super soldiers in there, but the fact that they're not flying around all over the place, or they're gods, I thought made it a bit more interesting to me. The only character I thought got a bit short shrift was Ghost. I didn't really know anything about her, unfortunately, and I feel like she was from an Ant-Man movie, and I don't really know much about her from then either. So hopefully we get a bit more of her in upcoming films. I thought it was cute that the Thunderbolts has this little asterisk in the title, right. Which kind of pays off at the end. Florence Pugh, of course, I love, is amazing. She really holds it together. And the fact that they don't have superpowers means that the fighting styles are quite immediate and quite heavy. I mean, I saw it in a really good cinema, and you could really hear all the hits, and the stunt work was really good. There wasn't a lot of cutaways to CGI stuff, which really takes me out of the film. So I really enjoyed the stunt work, and I really enjoyed the kind of immediate fighting of it. What else? The villain is really good. I think the measure of a Marvel film can almost be thought of as how good the villain is. And there's a couple of villains, and Elaine Bennis is also a bit of a villain in this, and she's fantastic to see in the Marvel universe. The way that it plays in, I've seen a couple of the TV series that it draws from, which the TV series, you can take them or leave them. But Wyatt Russell's character, I thought was one of the highlights of the TV series, and he gets a real good showing in this film, which I really enjoyed. It's got a bit of a heavy-handed metaphor about depression or trauma. that these people need to overcome, and I was okay with it, and I thought it actually worked, and it made me think about a few things that you don't normally think of in a Marvel film. So I was quite happy with the whole result, and I enjoyed it, and walked out of there feeling pretty upbeat about the next steps in the Marvel universe, which is what I haven't been feeling the last year or so. Yeah. How about yourself?
Exactly. I feel exactly the same way. I thought it was really well done. It looked great, which isn't always the case. I mean, we just watched that Captain America film, which looks absolutely terrible, just from a production standpoint. It looks like it's shot probably in the TV sets and just very flat lighting, has no character to it at all. And these characters, of course, have turned up in that movie. This is like a direct sequel to that Captain America film, which was surprisingly mildly successful, considering it's really not a good film at all. and even some of these characters recycled as well. Yeah, I really thought that Wyatt Russell, who was he was an interesting character in that series, which wasn't that successful. I agree. I thought he's really good here. Florence Pugh's really good here. The cast in general, I'm a fan of these actors. I think that David Harbour, I was worried there because they have him at the beginning and then he disappears for a big chunk of the movie. When he comes back, he steals like every scene he's in. He's so absolutely hysterical. It was just such a pleasure to have him in there. And yeah, it was like Guardians of the Galaxy, but unlike the psychedelic sci-fi that Guardians is, it is in the world of Bucky and Captain America, the more spy thriller version of the Avengers, which is like a subset of those Avenger movies. And it's like that version of it, which for me is more my taste anyway. And it's a lot of fun, just these losers coming together and actually, doing something good. And also given the fact, like you said, most of these people don't even have superpowers and they go against someone who's extremely superpowered. So the way they resolve that is, using their own strengths, which it's funny that they've been intentionally promoting this movie as like the A24 Avengers film. And in the advertisements, they show like all the A24 movies that all these different people have been in. And the thing that makes it an A24 movie is all the trauma bonding, which is like every A24 horror movie is like really a metaphor for trauma. Well, so is the Thunderbolts. And when I saw it coming as I was watching the movie, I kind of was worried, but I thought it worked really well. I actually was moved even by some of the stuff that happened later in the film. And that character, which I don't want to give away here, is another actor I like, and also a really interesting character as well. So I really enjoyed that. And also, of course, that character may still be a ticking time bomb for the future, which I think is pretty interesting.
That's right. Yeah, for sure.
And I love Lane Bennis, as you called her. I love this character that just continuously does the wrong thing, does not see themselves as a villain. It really does feel like the most politically charged metaphor of this recent Marvel films, that they keep just doing these incredibly selfish, terrible things and don't see how absolutely terrible they are. One more thing I wanted to bring up on the MCU side of things. First of all, there are definitely Easter eggs in the whole Thunderbolts. Not only do we see Bill Pullman. I mean, Lewis Pullman. Lewis Pullman, by the way, looks exactly like his father, Bill, but I met Lewis Pullman. The Lewis Pullman character, who's called Bob in the film, but there's more to him that meets the eye, as you would expect. And I won't reveal who the main villain is in the film itself if you're not aware, but a very interesting character. And I did want to just shout out the fact that if you like The Boys, this is very Homelander coded character, or I should say the other way around, because this MCU character has been around for a very long time, and Homelander, of course, is probably a riff on this particular character. So if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. Hopefully that's not too vague, but I did want to call out the fact that my experience with Marvel is in watching the movies, and there are lots of Easter eggs here. For example, that we're actually at the abandoned Avengers Tower at the end of the film, which is interesting, especially when you think about where the film has ended up. So there's a lot of Easter eggs, things you can pick up on, even if you're a casual Marvel viewer. But I am not a Marvel completist or a super fan, or I casually read some of the comic books when I was a kid. I don't know all the lore. And same thing, because we're going to talk about Star Wars later in this episode. Same thing with Star Wars. I have an even bigger gap there. I've seen the movies. I've watched most of the TV series, maybe half of them, I should say, not even most of them. And that's my experience of it. So there are definitely places to go to get those deep mythological reads of the Star Wars series. And there's a lot of that. There's Easter eggs that I'm aware of that I'm kind of skirting over or skimming past, even in these Andor episodes. And we will touch on some of them, especially with the most recent 3 episodes, which have a lot of direct correlations to the Star Wars mythology. But all this to say that primarily I want to talk about this show, especially if you are a casual Star Wars fan, or you just like spy thrillers, for example. You really do not need to be a Star Wars super fan to love this series, this Andor series. And once again, speaking about Thunderbolts, you could be a very casual MCU viewer and appreciate this. So that's kind of the perspective I'm coming from. So do not attack me for getting a character's biography wrong or missing an Easter egg. I'm admittedly not the expert on these topics.
I'm not going to attack you, and I'm not an expert either. And really, I mean, Star Wars experts, proper experts, I think, are very few and far between.
It's also which version of the mythology at this point you want to include. How much of that superfluous canon is now being baked into these series? There's so much of it. There's so much of it.
Yeah, well, apparently, I mean, all this Mandalorian stuff and also the Andor stuff, a lot of it links to the animated series, which I haven't dug into at all, really, just because the style of animation doesn't really appeal to me, and it just goes so deep that I'm not actually that interested in it. But it does feed into these new live action series, I think, in a good way, because it takes the best bits of those and gives it the proper, more storytelling depth.
It even goes further back. There was, during the run of the original Star Wars films, there were these novelizations of other stories. And Filoni, who is now running a lot of the Star Wars universe as far as the TV series are, really borrows a lot from that as well. So that's a lot of that, and not all of it, but a lot of that has also become canon. So it's pretty mixed. It's become less and less of Lucas's mythology and more of these other stories that have been integrated, but not so much with Andor. Actually, this is pretty pure, tied into the original mythology. And the last thing I watched that I know you already seen, what you already praised here on the show, was Warfare. So I saw Warfare. I saw it at home, so it probably didn't have the same impact that would have been seeing it in theaters. But I did also like it. I'm a big fan of Alex Garland in general, and I like the moral ambiguity of the film. You mentioned how it is a very anti-war film. I agree for like the first half of the movie, but then when you really get into it, and it's a very suspenseful film as it rolls on, that you're so much in the minute-to-minute drama of the soldiers that you can't help but see them as heroes. And then, of course, that makes you wonder about like all the collateral damage for these guys to be heroic, quote unquote, to basically decimate this whole entire area that they're currently cornered in. I should say, I think the film is very aware of that, of both the glamorization potentially of the proficiency porn that these guys exhibit, and but then of course in the end, I think it's smart enough to kind of see in the end what was the goal of this mission and what has been accomplished here, and think about how much collateral damage there was to all of that. It plays both sides of that argument, and which, to its credit, I think that's an interesting take on the material. And it's very good. I mean, I've pretty much liked all of Garland's work, and he's an incredibly proficient, technically, incredible director.
There is one Alex Garland film that I don't like, and that's Men.
See, I even defend that one. I mean, it's a disaster. I mean, it's not a disaster. It's a mess, but it is an intriguing mess.
It is intriguing, that's for sure. That's interesting you mentioned about the mission that they're on is almost pointless. The way that they get this house at the start of the film, and this is a house. It looks like a good house.
I like this one.
Yeah. They kick the occupants of the house out and just lock them in a room for no reason, and then they've got this house for why, you don't really know, and then often a lot of members of the team don't really know either, why they're in this position, why they're there, and then when everything goes to hell, it's really just a survival mission. How good is the sound? And when a bomb goes off and you can't hear anything, you're with them and you can't see anything, you can't hear anything, and there's just this disorientation, which is just so immediate and stunning.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Technically, it's incredibly well done, and really putting you in that, in the moment to moment of it.
Also interesting you say how it kind of makes them heroes. That's a very interesting comment. And when the Charles Melton character, I think when he comes into it, he is so good at his job that he is almost a bit of an action hero. Right. Which I thought was a bit odd, because a lot of them are just, they're proficient at their job, but they don't have those action poses or those action shots. Whereas he just came through and led his team. And yeah, they were so successful at clearing the area and getting to where they needed to be that I thought, oh, maybe it is a bit glamorizing that type of thing.
And I think I mean, that's what's intriguing to an extent of the movie. I think that it wants us to grapple with that. I think that the first half hour or so, when you see them just kind of hop in, we open the movie with this image of this child in front of her house. And which, of course, we know is going to be like, well, we don't know, but it is going to be like decimated by the end of this film. Even though, of course, our perspective is very much still with the soldiers. To be honest with you, even the translator kind of gets blown in half literally and forgotten by the film itself. So a lot of that makes the native folks anonymous, let's say. But I think that's intentional because we're very much in their POV. But I think we bump up against it, or I did anyway, as I was watching it. The film is making us aware of the trauma they're causing to these other people. But then, like you said, in the back half, when it really becomes all action, you can't help but be in the moment and wanting them to get out of there. And of course, now you start to lean into the negative stereotype of this type of film, root for those guys, and fist pump when they proficiently escape their situation. And I think, but all of this, I think Garland is doing on purpose to basically show how, if you were there, of course, you're going to be empathetic to this. But it is, even then, in the end, you think about those final moments when you see how everything's just been decimated, and you ask yourself, and what did we achieve here? So, but it does, I think, require that of the audience. And I do wonder how many people are going to watch this and just think it's like a really awesome, just like the video games I play all the time, So I do worry that people will read it wrong, but at the same time, I don't care how people read something. I mean, people misread anything. So I'm not going to judge the film by how people read it.
No, that's right. And it's worth watching anyway. And how amazing is it when they put all their lives on the line to go out into the street just to recover their equipment that they need to take with them? And it's an axe, I think. It's just like, wow.
It's just the axe they left out, or the sledgehammer, whatever it was. Yeah.
Yeah. The Iraqi translators who are on their side, and they're geared up as well to fight for the Americans. But they know exactly what's going on, and they keep that information to themselves, even though they know they're surrounded. They know as soon as they leave the building, they're going to get shot at. It's just, what a situation for them to be in.
Yeah, it's all, and I mean, you think about those translators who took a lot of those jobs just because it was the only thing that was available, and what the risks they took because they have to live in those places afterwards.
Wow. Yeah.
All right, let's spend a little bit of time talking about this week's Mobland. How did you like this week's Mobland?
Okay, I'm taking a deep breath. I don't want to be too negative, but what is the point of this episode? I don't get it. I just don't get it. We're geared up for a war, and our the greatest actor in the film, this guy Jeff Bell playing Richie, he's on a couple of little conversations, he says the word run. He doesn't do anything. There's no war. And then we focus all on this little side project with, I forget his name, and it's also Serafina
and Brennan, yeah.
And the useless older brother.
Yes.
And did I catch that they're doing this little Ruby transaction for $2 million? I mean, what is the point? I thought it would be $200 million or something
right.
For them to put themselves out there like that. And I just didn't quite get it. I mean,
and they're ignoring so everybody's texting them, including Harry, and they're just ignoring the texts. I don't understand.
Look, we can talk about it more because it is interesting to talk about because I was a bit flummoxed by it.
I have to say that while I was watching this episode, I almost felt like I might quit the show.
Yeah, I did think the same.
But I'm like, okay, I think I'm going to stick it out given where we're at. And there's a couple of questions I still want to have answered. But to your point and to my question last week is like, what does the show want me to pay attention to? I think I've been watching this show the wrong way. And what I think it comes down to is this is my definition of soap opera, that I say that this show is a soap opera. And it might vary from person to person, but what I call a soap opera show is that, for me in general, I like to watch a show for the character, to kind of think like, oh, what would I do in that circumstance, or to fall in love with a character like on Breaking Bad or something, and then have that person betray you. You have to have a relationship with the person before they can betray you. If you're just watching things happen, there's never that sense of, communion with the other person. So that's kind of what I talk about soap opera, where you're watching that, just be like, oh my God, what trouble is Maeve going to get them in this week, right? It's like watching for plot, which for me is not my preferred way of watching this. And the way I crystallized it when I was watching this show, this particular episode, was, who do I care about in this show? Like, is Maeve going to die? I don't care. Is Maeve going to inherit the business? I don't care. Is Eddie going to die? I don't care. Is Brendan going to die? I don't care. Is Serafina going to die? I don't care. Is Jan going to divorce Harry? I don't care. Are they going to work it out? I don't care. I just don't care about anyone on the show, which is tough for trying to watch a show week to week.
It's not good, is it? And yeah, the way that you say soap opera, so everything is just very broad strokes, and it's like, we're just doing this now. Oh, we're putting, what's the chess analogy? You need to sacrifice pieces, and it's just like, oh, okay, yeah,
right,
all right.
That's the other thing, is that I try to meet the show on its own terms, and even there, the idea that Maeve is like, Eddie, let me show you how to play chess. I'm going to tell Richie that he's going to kill this person, but not that person. And don't worry, Richie and me go way back. He would never mess with me, because I wanted her to finish that sentence, because he knows that if he messes with me, I'll go and murder his wife and child. Oops, I already did that. So I don't know what you have over this guy. I mean, I really wanted her to finish that sentence. Like, what can she do to him that she hasn't already done to him?
And I feel like Eddie said that or said something similar. My absolute most favorite moment in this episode is when she was on the phone to Richie and she says that they have some history. Right. And there's a cut to Eddie and he just does this look as if he's thinking of this sexual relationship between Maeve and Richie. And it was just, I laughed and laughed. I had to replay it. It was so funny.
Do you believe that Conrad did this on his own, or do you think he's covering for Maeve? What did you think of that?
Yeah, of course. He's covering for Maeve. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because she even seems surprised when he takes the bullet for her.
That's right. Yeah, and he's covering for her because he wants to show that he's got power. It's not just her. He wants to, yeah.
Yeah, he has to, right? What do you think her chess move here is, that she says that he can kill Serafina, but protect Brendan. But then do you think that means, like, I don't know. I don't even know if it's worth
yeah, I mean,
considering what this is.
And just logistically, the fact that Richie can get an army together to I'm not convinced that that's him taking over the Serafina's deal. Just the fact that he can get there in an afternoon, I'm not quite on top of. I did like when Brendan's pissing his pants. I thought that was a great indication of his type of character. I thought that was funny. But yeah, I mean, okay, they're going to kill Serafina, but are they? I don't think they are. I think that's someone else. Now tell me, there's that mysterious guy that comes to the
same
auto
question
records.
I had for you. Yes.
Yeah. who is he working for? Yeah. I don't quite get it, but that's actually a bit more interesting. I like his character. And I want to know who his boss is, and are they going to inject something a bit different into this story? That's more what I'm more interested in.
That was the one thing that I was saying that I'm still curious about. Literally, I just researched that when you joined the call. This American, he's been there before. I forgot to bring him last week. He did pop up last week, talked to Zosia, said, I'm looking for Harry. And she brought him up, and he just blew it off. But it seemed to, trigger something in him. But he has an American accent. His boss is Kat McAllister, but we don't know who that is yet. As far as I know, we don't have an indication who that is. But apparently he means something to Harry. Harry does not want to have anything to do with him. But now all of a sudden, maybe, given the fact that Conrad's putting the moves on not only his wife, but his daughter also, possibly. I mean, the only thing that makes any sense is that Harry needs to get out of this situation. So this could be his way out. Yeah, I mean, it might be too little, too late for me to really care, but I am curious about that. Yeah, because in this, like what I wanted to see in this show, there's a few different versions of the show that probably would have worked for me. One of them would be that he is trying to be the fixer. They're getting themselves deeper and deeper into this, and that he figures out a way where he manipulates them, gets himself out of the situation, and lets them stab each other in the back, self-destruct, or maybe Kevin takes charge, but Kevin would never do it himself. So he, uses his clever fixing abilities to get Kevin that position. At the end, he'll be like, Kevin, I did this. And Kevin will be like, I never want to see you again or whatever. But thanks for doing this for me because my parents were the worst, whatever that particular was. But that would be a version of this that would be interesting to me. Maybe that's what ends up happening at the end. It hasn't been the show up until this point. So I guess we'll wait and see how that plays out. But we are more than halfway through. So maybe
we are, what's that, 6 of 10, I think.
Yeah.
But even Harry's fixing little abilities that I really enjoy in this show. He just he gets into the hotel room by blackmailing the guy with supposed pornographic pictures or something, and I just didn't even get that. I didn't even get how he got that information.
Yeah. When did he have the time to do that? He made up all this.
Yeah, it's like, I thought it was a real shortcut. That was a bit disappointing.
On to something that is more character driven, much more fascinating, and full of interesting themes. Let's talk about Andor last week. So as we mentioned, this is packing it in. They are just pouring in these episodes of these very dense and fascinating episodes of this show.
Was I correct? Did you enjoy? Was I right? Did you enjoy this stack of 3 episodes?
Oh, they were so good. I had seen episode 4, Ever Been to Gorman. That's the name of the episode. And then episode 5, I had seen half of episode 5 when we first started talking, but I'd seen about half of that one. And then I finished off that and What a Festive Evening, which is the 6th episode. And I just love the suspense of trying to get the listening device off the artwork, but also these layered conversations about the history of the Empire and the rebellion itself. There's just so many intriguing elements going on all the time. And maybe just one thing to focus the conversation on and then kind of expand from there. I continuously am so fascinated by Luthan as a character, obviously, but specifically in these episodes where you see that Luthan is kind of aware that something really, he may not know exactly how catastrophic this is going to be to Gorman, but he knows that something really bad is going to happen if they don't help these rebels out. And simultaneously, the Empire is like, well, we're going to have to destroy the entire planet to get the mining that we want out of this. And they're both willing to sacrifice a whole planet. Like Luthan's like, well, that'll show them. If that doesn't motivate a rebellion, I don't know what will. And the Empire is just like, well, you got to crack some eggs to make an omelet, And so it's, in a way, they're both throwing these people under the bus. And actually, I thought about this as I was watching Warfare too, the idea that in the end, terrible things will happen and good people are caught in the crossfire, whether you want to see these people as the rebels or as, you could read it either way, right? The guys in Warfare are either working for the Empire, but they're just some good guys who are just trying to do their jobs, or they're working for the rebellion, potentially. Either way you want to read it, the show is kind of saying that maybe there's not that big of a difference between these two sides.
That's very interesting. Yeah. Interesting to think about. I didn't get it from that kind of direction. But yeah, Luthan is coming a little bit unwound, isn't he? And the fact that he's almost playing into the Empire's plan is quite devastating, where he's sending these people to hijack this transport, and that's exactly what the Empire want them to do. So they can get this little rebellion that they can crush, or they can have an excuse to destroy this planet. Yeah. It's sinister.
In a way, they want the same thing. You have the one side, the Empire is trying to orchestrate, puppet the rebels to cause an attack so that they have an excuse to go to war with them. And then Luthan, in a way, goes, go ahead, do your worst. This will light a fuse. This will be, they call him an accelerant, right? That he wants to accelerate this rebellion. People are too complacent in the Empire, he needs to make them uncomfortable so that they will rebel. So it's very strange that they are common cause, even though theoretically they are on opposite sides of the table.
Yeah, and you need these tragedies across the way, across the storyline, so that other people do rise up and join the rebellion. But yeah, at what cost? It's horrible.
I mean, we see that in contemporary history, right? Like you think about just watching back in December when that Hulu series about the Troubles in Ireland.
Say Nothing, I think.
Say Nothing, yeah. Similarly there, you have the situation where you have these rebels aligning against the powers that be, and then the police force that needs the rebels to act out so they can like impose martial law on the population. So it is, again, this, and that same argument is being made, right? That you are playing right into their hands. And they're like, what are we going to do? Just sit around and wait? It's the exact same dynamic that's played out here. And maybe what always ends up happening within a Civil War type situation.
Oh, it's fascinating. It's fascinating that they keep the information from everybody. Not one person knows exactly what's going on. Even Dedra doesn't really know the whole scope of what she's doing in Gorman or why. I think only the Ben Mendelsohn character is really the only guy that knows the full plan. But even then, he may not know why they're pulling this mineral out. Yeah, the way that they separate information. And poor old Luthan, he knows something's going on, but he doesn't know exactly what. And Andor was just not interested. I thought that was interesting. He saw it there. He saw that they're not organized. They're not ready for a rebellion. They're not ready to do the things that they want to do. He was like, no, I'm out. I'm going to go back to Bix.
Bix is very interesting. And I love the button on this episode. We'll get to that in a minute. Yeah. It's so fantastic. What did you think of Cassian showing up undercover as this fashion designer, which really felt like he was channeling Luthan, right? He's like using all his Luthan knowledge to play off that role.
I think it's hilarious. I mean, there are some things that really go back to like the heart of Star Wars and just fun things in the movies that they have. And I thought this was one of them. It's not all super serious political stuff. This was just, hilarious. The hair and the clothes and the backstory that he has. Just so funny, just glorious to see him step out as an actor as well in a different kind of situation than hiding in the shadows and being all serious.
I mean, I guess this would be a spoiler for people who are waiting to watch Rogue One once this is all over, but it's interesting to see that
are there people that are doing that?
It's probably very few, but it is interesting to see that we talked about it last week also, that Cassian playing this role of like being the rebel recruiter and putting that character on, and then all of a sudden reluctantly trying to turn those idiots, the rebel idiots, down on the moon, against each other so that he can make his escape. And now here, like channeling Luthan potentially, and then trying to make his own way with his relationship with Bix as well. But it's interesting to see him play all these different roles. In a way, it's like this guy could have become like a great military leader or something because of all these different tools he has in his tool chest. But we all know that things don't go great for Cash in the long run.
Yeah, there was, I think, a funny aside that Luthan asked him about the character that he was portraying. He said something, he like approved it or something, said something nice about it, that makes sense that he was just playing Luthan.
He used that like a little role play with Bix when he got home too. He's like, she's like, oh, you should bring him here sometime.
This set of 3 episodes really developed their relationship. Yeah. In a very loving way. The scene where they're kind of dancing and touching each other's hands. Yeah. I mean, that's a hot scene. And it's very tender as well, which I thought was beautiful. And coming on the backdrop of her just being addicted to these drugs as well. There's this whole Requiem for a Dream situation going on with her alone in this house. I mean, it's just so enjoyable to watch.
It was so funny that the hand touching, I agree, by the way, the hand touching was very hot. It was funny what could be hot and not, because it reminds me, you've seen The Piano, right? Have you ever seen The Piano?
A long time ago, yeah.
Those lovers eventually get very naked in that movie. But I remember that scene where Harvey Keitel buttons her glove and kisses her wrist, and I was like, "Damn, that's hot." A couple of things with, it's interesting here how thematically linked some of these episodes have been last week with that whole concept of these performances as well. Everyone's playing a role, even Bix in playing the farmer and pretending her husband. I guess he is her husband in a way. It's just the way, and all these different performances they're playing. And of course, the Empire playing its performance as well. But here it seemed very much about these relationships, right? You see the relationship between Bix and Cassian. You see these two lovers that are reunited, sadly, for a very short period of time here in this particular episode. You see the marriage, Mon Mothma's marriage, and how it is, we saw kind of a negative side that he's maybe on the outside looking in. They seem to have a functional marriage here. They seem to understand their roles here, and even seem to have a camaraderie here a couple of times over the course of this set of episodes. Oh, and of course, we get to see Cyril again and his girlfriend and their dynamic as well. And of course,
turn out the lights.
That was great. Yes. How much time do you have? Turn out the lights. Which was maybe the hottest scene. Once again, it's maybe one of the hottest things that happens. Turn off the lights is one of the hottest things said on the show. But a lot of that, you see that it is all about how in the middle of all these wars and all these battles, that there is just, in the end, these individuals in their personal relationships trying to make this all work.
Yeah, stunning. I mean, also the lesbian kiss was very hot
too.
Yeah. That reunion, sorry, I can't even speak, between those two characters, which had been coming a long time,
right,
from last season. And I should have known what was going to happen. I really should have. It's
unfortunate that is often the case.
Yeah, with those reunions. Yeah. Sorry, just getting carried away with all the romance in this show now.
It was a hot set of episodes.
Yeah, it was. I also enjoyed the whole Empire, the whole white coats, the ISB agents, and also we focus on the red-headed guy who is putting himself out there by helping Luthan in a big bad way, and also helping Clea. So Clea and Luthan's relationship is very interesting too. There's all these relationships between like the older one and the younger one, and the way that she forced this redheaded guy to help her get the listening device out of this piece of art, and the way they kept cutting away to the attack on the transport is very Star Wars. The way they cut between 2 or 3 different situations, which ramp up the tension. I was just like, get this thing out of it. Just come on.
You're driving me crazy.
And her hands bleeding. I was like, oh God.
Yeah, and then of course we have that really tragic ending to that reunion. This young green rebel. Why was he trying to stop that guy?
He's really keen on this little mini rebellion for the Gormans, who actually don't speak French. I saw that they actually invented a language for them to speak in this episode. It
sounds French, but it's,
of the show. Yeah, they actually got someone to invent a language. Wow, incredible. Okay, but yeah, I think he had a bit of an issue with this guy earlier on in this story arc, where the big guy wasn't super on board with the way these underground resistance fighters are going about. So that's why the guy with the blaster tried to stop him from interfering in this thing, and then the blaster goes off. As soon as it went off, I knew exactly who it was going to hit.
Yeah, poor Cinta is killed by that blast, and then the way that he gets chewed out by her lover is just rough, and just saying like, you don't get to cry, you don't get to feel bad about this. You got to live with it for the rest of your life. This is going to motivate you. You're going to, you live your life because of this thing, which is rough. That's like some tough medicine.
It was excellent because I kind of put myself in that situation. Like, what do you say to this person? Do you just don't say anything? Do you say something short and sweet? But to chew him out like that was amazing. So the writer was Bo Williman, who I think wrote a few episodes in the first season, and he's from House of Cards. So he was there when House of Cards was very successful in those first couple of seasons. And yeah, just devastating writing.
Agreed. And then, of course, we end the episode with the retribution finally, when a few funny things happen there. First of all, that we have this conversation between Cassian and Luthan, and Cassian shows up to check on Bix. The subtlety of the writing when he shows up at the door and she sees him and she says, "Oh no," she thinks Cassian is been killed. And he says, "No, not that." And like, they don't have to explain. We know what went through her head and what he was, what he read on her face there. But then, of course, that he sees she's in a really bad place immediately. And then, of course, he does not tell Cassian, but then Cassian finds out about it. And this is all a test, right? Luthan wants to say, what will she tell him? Will she tell him? And then what will he say to me? I like how he mentions that he was disappointed by both of them in the set of conversations that came afterwards. But it's an interesting way that he's testing them always. You wonder what Luthan is trying to say, first of all, in visiting her by himself. But then, of course, later when he says that he needs to work this out, and Cassian does see some element of threat to that. He's like, I'm going to do this my own way. And of course, this all pays off fantastically in the end, where they catch her tormentor. He barely remembers her. He's like, "Oh, you look familiar to me." But of course, for him, this was momentary, so he didn't remember it. He's probably done this hundreds of times to other people. He gets strapped to that chair. It'll only be a moment for me, but it'll be an eternity for you. And imagine him strapped into that chair with that device on his head, and then they kill the guard downstairs. He might be like that, like for a whole day. Like, this is going to be literally like eternities of him with those mind games going on inside that machine, whatever torment he's going to be living with. It basically will drive him utterly insane. So true, satisfying resolution to this arc.
Fantastic. Although they did blow something up. So I took it as they blew up the floor that he was in to cover their tracks, but maybe not. I do like the idea of him just being tortured constantly. Going back to when Luthan came into Bix's apartment, he discovered that she's not right. He discovered that she is doing this drug that he also has experience with doing, which makes his backstory a lot more interesting as well. If he couldn't get even more interesting, he's dealt with the kind of horrors that she is dealing with as well. And he was just seeing whether she's strong enough to overcome it, or whether he has to take care of her to be able to keep Cassian as a weapon for himself. I mean, so dark. And the fact that she did tell Cassian about the visit, and she gets her redemption arc. To see her and Cassian together as a team.
I agree. Seeing them together and having this out in the open is the only way to get past it. And, hey, teaming up to get the revenge is nothing could be sweeter. You're right that they did blow up something there at the end. I didn't take it as they were blowing him up. I think they let him off the hook too easily. I wanted him to be there all night long. Like multiple lifetimes of tormented, like he's going to be a total lunatic by the time they take that thing off of his head, which would be more sweet dessert for me than just killing him.
I agree.
Yeah, and I do hope that this does solve her of this addiction. You know what? We could talk about Mon Mothma just for a moment there. I did think it was very interesting to see her openly have this argument with these more loyal Empire elements about seeing these people as criminals, or is that just a story they want to tell? So it's very courageous of her, even in her persona, to broach the subject, which she has done before. But I also find it interesting to see her still trying to solve these problems politically, even though that hasn't really worked up until this point. And lastly, I really liked having her sworn in, whatever that, when she needs to, whatever that swearing in ceremony is, where they're talking about making the empire strong. So you see like the birth of the empire here, but also how she like halfway through kind of gives up saying the oath.
Yeah, fascinating. Yeah, I loved when Krennic was revealed to be in that art gallery scene. I was like, oh, what is going to go on here? So many, the politics about it, and the way that they could talk calmly about their different perspectives was really great as well. So they respected each other politically, but definitely not personally. Yeah, very cool. And just as an aside, I really like the way they're dealing with the aliens in Star Wars. I mean, they're not, often we like fetishize these suits or the CGI or the puppetry of it. But in this show, it just exists.
Right.
Sometimes you get a good view of it. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes it's just they're in the background. And it just makes the world feel a lot more real. And they sell it to you a lot easier.
All right, so let's just jump right into the 3 most recent episodes, which feel free to parse these into 3 individual episodes if you'd like, Darren. But for my money, this was the most complete and riveting cycle of 3 episodes that this series has produced. And the action, the emotion, the payoffs, the character stuff. I mean, I got choked up multiple times watching this. I just thought it was absolutely fantastic. Oh, I haven't shouted this out before, but you did hear about in the trade papers how much they spent on this, and they really show it on the screen. I think about how many times you see these characters, even here, just seeing Andor walk his way up and down those stairs, and the crowd, in an actual location filling this large space instead of shooting, like you mentioned previously, your complaint of shooting like on the volume or like on the green screen or something. These places people are in actual locations, whether they are in the middle of a cornfield somewhere or whether they are on these, steps in front of these buildings. The buildings may not be real, but the size of these sets are massive, and they're real. The camera is literally tracking these people, even during the wedding sequences or some of these walk-in talks where they're going through all these different hallways. This is all built locations, and man, does it pay off, because this is incredible world building. And just from a production standpoint, it was knocked out by these 3 episodes, but so much to talk about in paying off so many different themes here that we've already touched on earlier.
Yeah, and there is wider shots of the Gorman city, which blend really well with the practical location, and also the Senate building, building that's next to the big pool, and the big steps that go up there. It just looks really good. I agree.
Yeah, this is and if maybe in the very simple terms, the first 3 episodes of this season were about that performance of control and faking it till you make it many times, mentoring and the different elements that are seen there, and even just the falseness of image, like the Empire may very well be a false image. And then the last 3 episodes, we were talking about all those relationships we see, romantic relationships, and maybe not only romantic relationships, but those dynamics when people are very close to each other, and how that is a strength and perhaps a weakness in different cases. In this 3 episodes, the thing that stood out for me is the theme of sacrifice. When you see that people over and over again, whether it is sacrificing your cover or sacrificing your political position or sacrificing your life or sacrificing your relationship, that everybody in the end has to surrender something to try to achieve this goal. And then the question, of course, becomes oftentimes with these characters, was it worth it or not by the end?
Yeah, that's very interesting the way that you say that, because that second episode, you really did know what was going to happen. And it felt like, while it did feel like a proper, not a riot, but just this tinderbox of explosion that everybody knows is what's going to happen. Yeah, the idea of sacrifice is quite interesting when you think of it like that, because they know where it's heading.
Yeah, and we could just start there, because I think that is obviously the central event here. And this, once again, it's really amazing storytelling where in the canon of Star Wars, if people are familiar with it, we know this is going to happen. We pretty much know what's going to happen because, as we discussed previously, both sides of this equation want this to happen. So, of course, it's going to inevitably happen. And these people are walking to their own fate. And there's this weight to it where they even know that this is probably a lost cause, but they're doing it anyway. And then when the massacre begins, this whole sequence is just incredible. Seeing Cyril understanding finally what's actually been happening, and the rage. I mean, the performance for this character is so interesting because I hated this character so thoroughly in season 1, but I found him so compelling because there was this doubt and this weakness inside of him that was so pathetic but fascinating at the same time. So to see him here obviously die in this set of episodes, and to have him confronted with what he's been doing this whole entire time is really fascinating, because it's such a despisable character who has real humanity to him. And I just thought this was really, and it really showed you like how nefarious in a way the Empire is, how impersonal they are in their calculation, and where someone is even a true believer oftentimes that is maybe most betrayed by it.
Oh, it was incredible. I mean, he had such a blind spot in the first season, and in this episode particularly, and this season, you can just see his vision getting wider as he sees more things about the world, and he starts to change what he thinks about it, especially with this new sexual relationship that he's got with Dedra, and he can't handle that either. I mean, the violence that he shows to her is pretty shocking.
Yeah.
The way he has his hand around her neck. I mean, I don't know what they do when the lights are out, but it wasn't.
That might be foreplay. We don't really know.
Yeah, that's right. But the way that opened him up, and then his last moments of where he finally is face to face with Cassian, and when Cassian says, "Who are you? Who even are you?" And that opens him up even more, where he just sees how singular he's become on this goal, where there's so many more things out there in the world that can affect him.
Did you think, I mean, I think we are supposed to read it this way, but is it believable that he attacks Cassian because he sees that Cassian is targeting Dedra?
I didn't I think that maybe as an aside, but I think it's more that was his focus from the start, and I feel like he knew that Dedra's focus was this Andor character as well. So I think he more just got the rush of blood that he finally sees him in the flesh and that he can take him out, rather than where he's actually pointing that gun.
And then, of course, Cassian doesn't even know who he is, so that's kind of the irony there, of course, right?
Oh, it's incredible having such a hatred of someone, and then they're just like, they don't even know you.
who are you?
How horrible must that feel too?
Yeah, so that's another sacrifice, of course, him sacrificing his life. Dedra, another character who I despise, but also still fascinating character, and seeing her, supposedly victorious here, and so not even conflicted, like really unhappy with the result. And it is interesting earlier in this season where she knows what has to be done. This is really basically her master plan, but she wants to leave. It's like she doesn't want to be too close to it, because even she feels uncomfortable with executing this plan. But she knew. She's like, I have an idea, and they saw it on her face. But then of course they put her in charge of it. And then the way she says to Cyril that, speaking of sacrificing, she's willing. It's interesting when you think about different people's motivations, where in some cases you are sacrificing the love of your life or sacrificing your status as a political figure for some greater good. That's mostly what the rebellion is doing. Even Luthan is sacrificing his comfort by the end of this set of episodes. And when you think about those sacrifices for some greater good, and then you think about Dedra being like, well, I'm willing to sacrifice all the people on this planet so that me and my lover can run off and be happy, happily ever after. So it's like a different kind of sacrifice, right? So maybe not for a personal gain, supposedly, but interesting that Cyril is not on board with this, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah, that was finally the reason for his turn, or his slight turn, was that he could finally. I think he actually felt an affinity with the Gorman people,
Yes, he definitely
and
does.
yeah, and the fact that he was kept from this big plan, he was really shocked by it. Another thing about Dedra, I think she was also pissed off that she didn't have complete control over the situation. Even though she knew what had to be done, the fact that they brought in this other guy with the scar on his face, that
Mhm.
she was the so-called trigger, but he was the weapon. She didn't like that. So all she could do is say proceed, and it was up to this guy to actually carry out the plan, and she was not on board with that at all.
This is such an incredible, multi-layered, central sequence here in the series. And one of the most chilling things about it is that guy with the scar on his face. As everything is going to plan, and they even have these like young soldiers that are basically
Mm.
just cannon fodder. They send them in there just to basically be massacred, as to rile up the public even more. And every once in a while, the camera will cut to him, and while even people who are on part of this plot are chaotically running around and trying to protect themselves, he is just calm and cool as a cucumber because this is all going exactly to plan. And there's something so chilling about seeing him just casually observing the carnage.
Yeah, incredible. And I really felt for his kind of second in command, that little garrison leader who
Mhm.
was in charge of those ragtag bunch of kids. He was like, I really felt for this guy because you could see he's like a career military man,
Yeah.
but maybe not quite good enough to get to the level that he wants to be, but is still going to take the order and do the good job that's expected of him, and he knows exactly that they're doing the wrong thing and what's going to happen to him and his little band. It's going to be carnage.
This is just tying things into the broader Star Wars universe. A few things we've seen here. One of the things I forgot to bring up earlier, there's just so much to talk about in these different
Mm,
subplots, is that Willman is out on Yavin, right? And this is big for two reasons. One is from the point of view of Cassian's progress as a leader. Obviously, you talked about the this mentoring theme that we see between the different characters, and how this is like a meme within a rebellion, right? That you pass on this knowledge from one person to the other as you learn something new. And that's how rebellions build over time. But that's very important that, at one point it looks like Cassian might have been fed up with this, but, is drawn back into action to protect him, to Willman. And also that's very important that this moon where everybody seems to be collecting over time. This is going to be central to, of course, the Star Wars films and the launch of that. The central location for that, the the Rebellion Center for the in the upcoming films, in the upcoming films from the 1970s. It's confusing here because this is all a prequel, of course, right to the original series.
to episode 4.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting how they can keep Yavin a secret. It must just be such a backwater that people can come and go and no one really cares about it. How's Willman? He's got a girl on every planet, it seems.
Yeah, right. He's like right to it again.
I
He
wonder
like
who he
rolls out of
has.
bed. He's just found someone already.
And he's spent a lot of time. We haven't talked about I was going to say Morgan Freeman, but Forrest Whitaker's character Saul
Yes.
Guerrera, who was quite a divisive character, I thought, in Rogue One,
Yeah.
but he's kind of pulled back a bit in this set of episodes. Well, actually, not this set, but the previous set of
He still goes
episodes.
for it though.
He still goes for it, and he's hooked on that gas or whatever it is. And I don't know why I'm bringing this in, just because Willman was a part of his squad, and I just
Yeah.
suggest maybe Willman's hooked up with someone there too. But the way that Saw Gerrera is his name, he's got a different kind of revolutionary army, and that all plays into the rebellion. But I thought that was quite interesting in that he's much more for the violence and much
Right.
more for the insurrection. And they're very separate. So I wonder what Willman, hopefully he continues. It feels like he's going to continue how hard he's become with Saw Gerrera's team, that now he is much more of a leader with more of a broad palette of tools that he can use.
Yeah, no, in some ways, it would be almost interesting. We probably won't see this. Maybe we'll see it in the final set of episodes, but it would be interesting to see him evolve as a character for that very reason, that he's taking from, Cassian, taking from the character, his name, the character you just mentioned is
Saw,
and also, of course, taking from Luthan. So he's being mentored by these very different types of characters, right? Someone who's in there for the violence, in there for the insanity, going like, you have to be insane to survive this. And then, of course, someone much more calculating like Luthan, who's working in the shadows, and Cassian, who's a Swiss Army knife to a large extent, but becoming more useful, but is more subtle, but still more of the blade of the knife. And it's interesting to imagine him, consolidating these different influences.
Yeah, and Cassian still doesn't quite believe in himself. Yeah, it's just he's so talented, and he can merge into all these different characters and all these different situations, and somehow finds a way through to become ultimately this character that we see in Rogue One, who is, as you say, a Swiss Army knife. It's a good way of talking about it.
Mon Mothma, of course, already started to reach her breaking point when we saw her last in the last set of episodes. But now at this point, this is truly her breaking point, and she's willing to sacrifice her standing here, and maybe even her own life here, by giving this speech. I think it's very clever the way they allow her to keep speaking, where they say, "Hey, this door has never worked for the past year. Why is it working now?" It's like, "Oh yeah, we fixed it yesterday." And they're using the bureaucracy of the empire against itself there, which I thought was interesting. But she does get to give most of her speech, but of course puts herself in peril. And then, of course, she has to decide again, is she going to trust Luthan or not? Of course, tying things into the broader mythology here, we also see that she runs into Bail Organa, who, of course, becomes Princess Leia's adoptive father. And that, of course, is going to be Benjamin Bratt in this version of the story. And that, of course, is going to pay off in those Star Wars movies, the original OG trilogy. Anything else about Mon you want to mention?
Oh, I just thought the actress was doing an incredible job. Probably my favorite bit was the final sequence when Cassian is getting her out of the Senate. And she's just finally, you can see that by performing that speech, she's crossed over from politician to rebel as they're escaping. And when Cassian kills first that lady and then kills her driver, she's just, the shock just runs through her so incredibly. She can't believe that someone's just been shot in front of her. And she's finally, you can see now she's a rebel. She's a rebel leader, and she needs to go into hiding. It's incredible. I loved seeing her in that
Welcome
sequence.
to the rebellion is what he says to her. So
Yes. Yeah, so that's the title of that episode. And the title of the previous episode was Who Are You?
Who are you, exactly. I love that scene, by the way, where they're confronted. First of all, speaking of someone who's not good at their job, the assassin who's been there needs to escort her out of there and then turn on her. You don't turn on her in the middle of, reveal that you are working for the Empire in front of all these witnesses. But I do like how Cassian turns around and goes, she's a rebel spy.
Yeah.
Something I forgot to mention in all of the coverage of this season of the show is, of course, something that is really thematically interesting and telling, the way that they're using this media manipulation, this stories about these out of control Gore peoples, and how that you see it on the news, and how there's some jokes about it on the morning show, and then another one of these terrorist attacks, they're all a bunch of criminals, and then by the time we get to this episode, they're like, we know there's going to be a riot here, these people can't be controlled, And it's like, we see it unfortunately in our current politics as well, where you invent a narrative and then you feed the narrative, and we see it here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And both can be correct depending on where you're watching it from. Like Cyril's mum watching it in her Coruscant apartment with two of her friends, if she has any friends. And her final shot, I think, almost closed the episode. Just she could see that Cyril, her only son, possibly her only close family, is now dead. And she's wondering what her place in the world is, watching the Empire news.
Right. What do you take? How do you read her expression there at the end? She, of course, is just lost now. She's lost her only close relationship, like you mentioned.
I just think I really like that actress. I remember seeing her in Poor Things, and I think she's been in lots and lots of films. She's very talented. She's just a horrible character, but I did feel for her in that moment, because you could just see that she's thinking about her only son, and that she's finally lost him, and perhaps that she could have been a better mother to him, maybe.
Have you seen the new version of Macbeth with Denzel Washington on Apple TV?
I have not. I think I saw a little bit of it. Is that the black and white one?
It's in black and white. Yeah, it's from
Joel Cohen.
I
saw. Yeah. Yes, I saw some of it. Yeah, it was out there.
Yeah, I would recommend it. It's really good. And she plays the witches, all three witches. So it's interesting.
Yes.
What else was I going to say? Oh, and then of course we get to a little bit of a quiet reprieve. It's interesting that everyone's safe and they've regrouped, and they're back on Cassian's home, or his former home. And there's like very little time for anything. They're like, they need Mon to give another speech. They got a ship ready for her to go. Everything's very accelerated. And Cassian's been saying this for all three of these most recent episodes, that he's done with it all, that he needs to take some time off. He's given as much as he can, and he wants to have a quiet life with Bix. And Bix takes this all in, and we know there's something brewing there. We can't quite figure out what it is. And this all ends really sadly when he wakes up alone, and she has left on a freighter and leaves him this really emotional message, basically telling him that the cause is too important for them to run off together, and that maybe someday they'll be together again. But for the time being, he needs to keep fighting, because, like you mentioned, he isn't even maybe fully aware that he is pretty unique. He says, I've only made it this far because I'm lucky. That's all. It's all been just luck. But she doesn't believe that. Of course, there's also a very important moment where they see this homeopathic doctor of some kind, supernatural doctor here. And she not only knows his injury to his shoulder, but sees something else in him. And this reinforces even more what Bix thinks, that he has some kind of path ahead of him. And he doesn't see that yet, right? He still just wants to settle down, go to a quiet place that somehow has not been affected by the war yet, and settle down with Bix and live out the rest of his days. And she thinks that's the wrong choice, and she makes a choice for them. And this is very tragic. Another sacrifice being made here by Bix, obviously, and imposing a sacrifice on Andor as well.
Yeah, look, not as tragic as if she dies.
Yes,
in
I was glad that wasn't the direction things went.
Because I'm a big fan of Bix. She's just gorgeous. I was a little bit mixed on the bringing the Force healer into it. Not quite sure if I want too much Force in Andor, but it did lead into the reasons for her feeling a little bit, like Cassian has a greater purpose. That makes a lot of sense. And the fact that she loves him so much that she will leave him to allow him to become this leader that she knows, she trusts, that the faith that she has in him is so strong that it's actually quite beautiful, and it does feed into that sacrifice theme that you're talking about. So yeah, great. I'm not sure if we'll see Bix again. Maybe. I mean, every time that something happens in this series, it's like we may not see this person ever again. They have such beautiful endings, whether they die or whether they just their story ends. Like Dedra, I'm not sure if we're going to see Dedra again. Whether she has any more part to play in the story, and I'm fine with it. If we don't, that's fine. And also Bix, even though I'd love to see her face again, and I'm sure Cassian does too. Maybe that's it for her. There's only 3 episodes to go.
Yeah, and I think the next 3 episodes jumps another year ahead, and I believe those events dovetail directly into Rogue One, a movie that I have not seen. I've seen once, and I've seen long time ago. So I will have to watch that movie again in the context of those final 3 episodes next week.
Yeah, I watched it last weekend because I was pretty keen on Andor, and it'd be interesting to see what you think of it.
Yeah, it's funny. I only saw the original one time. I wasn't that enthused about the idea of Andor. I like the talent, but I was just like, okay, we're again trying to make another prequel to the Star Wars movies, which I was already starting to get kind of wary of. And then I was just knocked out because it was basically a spy show, and I love spy shows and all the intrigue of being a spy. And for example, we see it here, just the way that Cyril is embedded with these people and then goes native, right? He starts to think like, wow, I like these people better than my people. I don't buy my own propaganda anymore. And you start seeing that turn happen. And all of that I find very interesting in spy shows in general. And it got won over. And then I was like, oh, I should watch Rogue One again because I remember it pretty clearly, but haven't seen it in a really long time. But then I was like, well, I'll wait for the next show. Like I basically would wait for Andor to wrap up. Originally, it was supposed to be like 3 or 4 seasons, and now they've only done 1 more. But I was like, well, I'll wait for it to end, and then of course I'll just watch it, Rogue One again, appropriately as the conclusion to the story. And I guess that's exactly what I'm going to do. Probably next week, and we'll probably discuss, or I should say, maybe we'll discuss it briefly after we wrap up the last 3 episodes. Have any speculation?
Very patient in watching it. Maybe I should have waited. I just couldn't. I just wanted to see these characters. Another thing that I'm a little bit mixed is so now we're leading up to Rogue One. So now we're seeing the droid.
Yes,
that
I was going to bring that up.
Cassian finds and is going to reprogram to be on his side, and we see his mate, I forget his mate's name, Melfi or Melshi or something, who he actually escaped from the prison with, and now he's joined the rebellion. He has a special weapon. I don't quite understand why Vel clocks his weapon, that it's different. Maybe he's got a military background, and then he plays a larger part in Rogue One as well. So yeah, I'm always a little bit mixed. It's like, oh, that's where that came from. That's where that came from. I don't really need to know where it all came from, but I guess it is interesting for casual fans.
That's what I was going to bring up was exactly that, the robot, and in the exact light that you just brought it up. The one thing I bump up against a little bit, especially in these 3 episodes where I was completely, riveted by what I was watching, and that all of a sudden, that there's an Easter egg for Rogue One they have to throw in there, or for the broader Star Wars mythology. And there's a lot of them, like people say, like, oh, that's a particular blaster that she's using or whatever. Those are things I don't even pick up on. But whenever the show has to like shoehorn that in, I always bump up against a little bit. But even with the robot here, I feel like they hide it pretty well, where, it's like it's an actually pretty exciting sequence. And then when they recover the robot, I'm like, oh, I see what they did there. But every time it takes me out a little bit of what is really one of the best hours of television I've seen all year. And then all of a sudden be like, oh, remember that droid from Rogue One? Here's where he came from. I'm like, all right, okay.
It's a minor gripe. And it was very exciting when Cassian was face to face with that droid coming at him, and you felt how he felt in the previous season when one of these droids just got him by the neck and chucked him in jail and just sent him on a path that he did not want to go on, pretty horrible path. So he got a bit of revenge for that.
Do you think that the Willman's one night stand? I don't know if it was a one night stand. Maybe they had a relationship before. But do you think that actually, by the way, her radio broadcast was really heartbreaking. But do you think she survives? What happened to her? Did she get off the planet?
She did. She's with him at the end, I think, isn't she? She's in the apartment.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
At the end, yeah. So that was a really interesting scene when everyone from different worlds is in this one kind of safe house in Coruscant together. And Mon Mothma doesn't look like she should be in this dirty apartment. But I thought it was quite interesting when she said to Cassian, "Oh, you've been here before," where he casually goes and makes a cup of coffee. So she can kind of sees where he's come from and the filth that he lives in. Because Bix hasn't been there for a while to clean it up. But I think, that chick, that Gorman Resistance girl, was next to Willman tending to his injuries. So hopefully they go off together and get strong again for a year later.
We'll see. A year from now.
Yeah. So what do you think? All right. So I'm just thinking about Luthan because he was conspicuously absent from the apartment. Does that mean his cover's blown now that Mon Mothma's gone into hiding? Him and Claire's antiques shop is going to be closed, and Claire is also going to go off to Yavin, or do they still have a role to play in Coruscant?
I'm curious to know how they use Luthan. I would assume he has some other kind of cover, but he probably has to disappear from his current cover, given I think that's all going to fall apart. I'm not sure why it falls apart. Specifically, but he makes it pretty clear. He says, like, they're going to use his ship for her to escape. And I assume if they see that they'll know that he's involved in some way. So he's just gonna, he's walking around wigless. So,
yeah, that's right.
Doesn't want anyone to spot him. I mean, he wears this. I mean, Andor shows up at his apartment at night and he's got the wig on. So for him to not be wearing his wig, that's pretty serious stuff.
Yeah, and I got genuinely edgy when he's walking around in the daytime without wearing that wig.
He could do anything. We don't know.
And there's also that thing in the first season where he's holding this staff, which there's a lot of conjecture whether he is, in fact, one of these Jedis that is completely absent from the whole series. But he's very interested in keeping this staff, where I haven't seen it all series in the second series. So I'm not sure if that is going to play up a little bit or whether there's more to Luthan than meets the eye. I'm sure there is.
Maybe he shows up with a lightsaber in the next episode.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if that's what I want to see.
Right.
But they've been hinting something. They were hinting at that in the past. I think old mate Redhead from the ISB is going to get in a bit of trouble in the next 3 episodes. I feel like his story's still got a bit to go.
Yeah. I actually don't know where it's going to go, because I can imagine it having, it could be very tightly coupled to Rogue One and those moments early in that episode. Maybe they're going to fit it directly into the chronology of that film. Or maybe not. Maybe there is, the stealing of the plans and the, like the planning for that sequence of events, for basically setting up everything that's going to happen in Rogue One, and that could be like it's like a mini heist in and of itself. I'm not sure if that would be as interesting, by the way, but yeah, I honestly don't know. But what I do know is that I have a lot of confidence in the showrunners to make it interesting.
Yeah, and that's great to think about, isn't it? And just the swift pace that it's been presented to us is kind of stunning. I don't feel like we've really scratched the surface of what all these episodes are about. But I mean, that's it, isn't it? I mean, you just got to let it wash over you and pull bits out that you can grab onto.
Yeah, I mean, I think about it is a complaint of mine of the way they're releasing this. On the one hand, it's great to have 2.5 hour great movie pretty much every week to watch. That's always entertaining. But I can imagine going week to week with this, and you think about, well, what are they setting up here? what does this character mean when they say this line of dialogue, and then how it pays off at the end, like some kind of betrayal, and all those things. Like you said, we're barely scratching the surface. All those things are being set up. There's these little arcs within an episode, within the 3 episodes, within the entire season, within the entire Star Wars mythology. There's so much to dig into here, but we got to talk about 3 hours at a time. So it's it's pretty cursory, unfortunately, but yeah, there's a lot to dig into here. So
yeah, there really is. I mean, there's more Partagaz, the head of the ISB. I feel like there's more of him to come. I feel like Krennic, Ben Mendelsohn, will come back in these 3, and perhaps Dedra will as well. But I don't know if she's got much left to do. Yeah,
it would be
so
interesting
exciting.
if she's changed somehow by all of this, right? That she thought she was doing something to help, to change her outcome of this relationship, and how badly that all turned out. So maybe there is some realization about that. I mean, we'll have to wait and see.
Well, she's got such a mentor role with Partagaz, and she keeps trusting him, and he keeps telling her. I love how he just tells her to not to calm down, but just to get herself straight, and she has to put her hands behind her back and fix her uniform just so that she doesn't show too much excitement. Because that's not becoming of the ISB agent that Partagaz wants. 3 episodes. Oh, there's so much that could happen.
Another really impressive thing about all of this, a complaint I have over and over again with like the Obi-Wan series, which I thought was terrible, that they're incapable of opening up this Star Wars world, that it's all this, you can't throw a shoe in the Star Wars universe without hitting one of the characters from the original mythology. And I'm like, how is it possible that they're incapable of making interesting stories that expand beyond the Luke Skywalker mythology, right? And that was my general critique with that Obi-Wan, but other series as well. And then you think about this, which is, we know the outcomes of most of these characters. We know that this story is so small in what it even delivers. It's just the setup it's just one line of dialogue, or not even, maybe 10 lines of dialogue within the first Star Wars movie. And they have built an entire universe with all these different characters and all these little, it's like in a drop of water, we have a whole entire universe. And it's really encouraging in that the thing that I say that they're incapable of doing, they actually did very well by allowing us to get so granular that you make a whole universe out of it, which is fascinating. But not only that, the fact that you create sequences like the ones in these most recent episodes where we know the outcome, we know what's going to happen. It's going to be a massacre. We know that the vast majority of those people are going to die, and yet there's all this tension and suspense and drama in it. So it's that just, you know what, if you can make good television, you can make good television out of anything. But there's a lot, it makes me feel like there's a lot more potential in this Star Wars mythology if you hand these stories to the right people. Because I do feel like I feel like the most recent Star Wars stories that I've tried to watch, they go nowhere. They're really they're not allowed to have anything consequential to say or do, and they're just tedious in general.
Well, did you hear the news that Sean Levy is directing a new Star Wars film with Ryan Gosling?
I like the Ryan Gosling part of it. I'm not sure I'm on board with the Sean Levy part of it, but
did he do Deadpool Wolverine?
He did Deadpool Wolverine.
Okay.
I think he's worked. I think that's my concern. I think he did a good job there. He's
I did too.
He's one of the creators. He's directed a lot of Stranger Things also. I think that he can proficiently deliver on, he makes films that look good and deliver what the producers want, let's put it that way. So I think he can deliver a product which is solid in execution. I don't think he has a vision like the Gilroy brothers about creating a whole complex internetwork of spies within the microcosm of one paragraph of a Star Wars script, right? I don't think he has the ability of doing that. So I worry.
Well, yeah, I have those worries as well. But it will be interesting to see a movie that possibly doesn't include Skywalkers in it. But you know there's going to be Easter eggs, and you know there's going to be nods and stuff to that kind of thing.
And they're basically pitching it as Ryan Gosling is Han Solo. So I worry that they're going to be like, oh, Guardians of the Galaxy, something like that. And with Guardians of the Galaxy, which is already winking at like a Star Wars type universe. And then we're just like doing a copy of a copy. I'm just like, I don't, and once again, like, I think the Guardians films are actually really creative. I think that's really well done, but I don't think Sean Levy has the kind of vision that James Gunn has, right? So James Gunn has a very specific set of themes and visual cues that he's honed in on his whole entire career. I think Sean Levy is just there to be like, I'll do what you want me to do, boss. And boss better have a really good plan and really good script, let's say. So yeah, I'm concerned. I'm also concerned, and not concerned, but I am concerned that we may not get this type of mature storytelling, because the ratings for Andor are starting to come in, and the first 6 days, which is the first release they had for the first batch of episodes, was 1.2 million views, which is the same as season 1 of Andor, which was already like the worst of any of these Star Wars films. So series, I should say. So I find it very disconcerting that the audience has not expanded despite the quality of that first season of the show. I do hope people find it because it's so good. But I mean, unfortunately, if this show becomes yet another one of the worst rated Star Wars shows, they're not going to make more of this type of show. So
that is just bizarre to me. Yeah, when I turned it on last night, the new animated Star Wars was number 1. Whether these lists are correct or not, or whether that's just what they want you to watch, that was number 1. And then I was like, oh, where's Andor? And it was down number 4 or 5. So I was like, okay, I'm going straight to that one, and I probably may not watch the first one.
I mean, it's pretty bad. I don't know if it's indicator that they're not marketing it that much, Disney that is, or if it's just not that popular. But the other day when I was trying to finish watching the set of episodes, I couldn't even find it. I was like, it wasn't in my continue watching. It wasn't on the list, the top 5 list or whatever that was on the screen. So I had to like search for it. I'm like, are you kidding me? I was just watching this yesterday. I can't find it on the menu. Like, what's going on here?
Crazy. Yeah. A couple of weeks ago, there was a beautiful, on my Google TV, there was just a beautiful poster of Andor and all the characters on there in the one poster. You know how they do that for the Star Wars films, and it just looked so good. And that's gone now.
But we'll always have it. Darren, you and I will always have it. And this podcast is a memory of it.
Yeah, 3 more episodes. Yeah. Bring it on. I'm so excited. Yeah, and it's great to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So can't wait to see that. And I'll probably watch Rogue One as well after that, and we can have that conversation next week. After that, beyond that, I should say, this week, another episode of Your Friends and Neighbors. You still watching that, Darren? Have you still caught?
I am watching that, and I've been listening to you guys talk about it, and I do have concerns about where the show is going. It's a bit bizarre to me, but the wife likes it, so we're going to keep watching it.
Yeah, and the plot is definitely going to kick in this week, so we'll be curious to see which direction it goes in. Although, as we've outlined in the podcast, not really the show I wanted to see at that point, to be honest. but Soda loves it, so I'm like, okay, well, and my wife too is still watching it every week, so something that we actually watch together. So that's always a plus.
It's always a plus, isn't it? Yeah, but we are skipping that title sequence. I just can't deal with that.
I skip
those
it every
things blowing
time.
Up.
Every time, yeah. Unlike Severance, which I watched the title sequence when they had it, they actually skipped it quite a few times this year, and they had a new one as well this year. But anyway, always watch that one, and this one, nope, sorry. And of course, Mobland, which is not great either as a show, I should say. Always listen to that song, although I've heard that song 1,000 times.
Love that track. Still,
exactly. Never gets old. We heard it over the weekend. We went to visit our friends, and their son was playing FIFA, I think it was, and when they were in the menu, changing their settings, that's the song that was playing. I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna hear this song like another 40 times this weekend.
That's so funny. Yeah, I'm spewing that I only discovered that song after they just visited this city. They played a gig and a couple of my friends went. I'm like, I vaguely knew of this band, and completely missed them. But now I'm a massive fan.
Yeah, have you listened to Romance? Have you been listening to the album?
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, it's very good. That doesn't all sound like that song, but still all very good.
Mm.
And of course, beyond that, what are we going to talk about on the podcast? What we're probably going to talk about, first of all, is Murderbot. We'll probably try that one out.
Murderbot
The following week.
So we're going from what's the Luthan actor's name to his son?
So, yes, from Stellan Skarsgård to Alexander Skarsgård. That's one connection. The other one is theoretically this oppressive fascist regime with their killer robots. Maybe it is. You can like squint and imagine that it's all taking place in the same universe.
Yes, and the droid, that K2SO, he becomes a bit like sarcastic and a little bit self-aware in Rogue One.
Mm-hmm,
so
exactly.
Maybe Murderbot is similar. He calls himself Murderbot.
A much more handsome version of the Murderbot. So yeah, we're going to sample that one, see how that goes, and see if that becomes a week-to-week for us. We need something because once this month ends, it's going to be pretty rough times. Apple TV, by the way, usually pulls off something that gets popular. We had Silo, we had Presumed Innocent, we had Hijack in 3 subsequent years. So Apple still puts stuff out. So there might be an Apple, and maybe it's Murderbot. Maybe Murderbot becomes that a hot show for the summer.
And one series that I am looking forward to is Alien Earth. So I'm not sure how close that is.
Okay, yeah, that's excellent. So Alien Earth, I have a pin in that one. We are definitely going to cover Alien Earth here on the podcast. There are teasers. There are live events. FX is pushing the Alien Earth. And every single time they say it's coming, they're like, summer. So it's sometime after June 21st. I wouldn't expect to see it before July. I think August would probably be too late to premiere the show because then it starts bumping into all the premieres in September. So I'm thinking July. That's what I'm thinking. So, but yeah, we will definitely be talking about Alien Earth when that premieres. And The Bear is coming back in June.
Okay. One more season.
Something else to watch. Yeah, that'll be a binge though. So, but we'll find something. We'll find something. Yeah, good.
But yeah, so I have faith.
Yeah, something always turns up. All right, Darren. Thank you again for the conversation.
Okay. Thanks, Victor. Cheers.
Talk to you soon.